Welcome. Today we're going to explore the beautiful practice of disciplining children for parenting, but in Buddhism it's approached with mindfulness, compassion and wisdom. Instead of punishment or harsh corrections, Buddhist principles emphasize guiding children in ways that nurture their moral and emotional development. In this video, we'll explore 5 gentle yet effective ways to discipline kids using Buddhist teachings, helping them grow with kindness and respect for themselves and others. Let's get started. Mindfulness, or sati, is one of the most profound and transformative practices in Buddhism, forming the very foundation upon which the entire path of spiritual development is built. To practice mindfulness is to cultivate an awareness that is deeply rooted in the present moment, an awareness that is non-judgmental, open, and free from distractions. At its core, mindfulness is about bringing our attention to what is happening right here and now, whether that is a sensation in the body, a thought in the mind, or an external event, without being pulled into habitual reactions or narratives. This simple yet profound act of being present has the potential to transform not only our inner experience, but our entire way of interacting with the world around us. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to see how mindfulness can be a powerful antidote to the busyness and distractions that often dominate our lives. We live in a time when information is constantly being thrown at us, when our attention is pulled in countless directions, and when the pace of life can feel overwhelming. In the midst of this chaos, it's easy to lose touch with the present moment, to become caught up in worries about the future or regrets about the past, and to feel disconnected from our own lives. Mindfulness offers a way to come back to the present, to ground ourselves in the here and now, and to experience life as it unfolds, moment by moment. At its heart, mindfulness is a practice of coming home to ourselves. It is about becoming fully present with whatever is happening, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, exciting or mundane. This doesn't mean that we try to force ourselves to be present or to make ourselves enjoy every moment. Rather, it means that we allow ourselves to be fully awake and aware, just as we are, without trying to change or fix anything. This attitude of openness and acceptance is a key aspect of mindfulness, and it is what makes the practice so transformative. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice the constant flow of thoughts, emotions, and sensations that make up our experience. Often, we live our lives on autopilot, going through the motions without really paying attention to what's happening. We may be physically present, but our minds are elsewhere, lost in thought, worrying about the future, or replaying events from the past. Mindfulness helps us to step out of this autopilot mode and to become fully present with what is happening in the moment. It's a way of waking up to our lives and experiencing them more fully. One of the most common ways to practice mindfulness is through mindful breathing. The breath is always with us, and it provides a natural anchor for our attention. When we bring our awareness to the breath, we create a point of focus that helps to ground us in the present moment. By paying attention to the sensations of the breath as it enters and leaves the body, we begin to develop a deeper awareness of our own inner experience. The breath is a powerful tool for mindfulness because it is always happening in the present moment, and it is constantly changing. This makes it an ideal object of meditation, as it helps us to stay connected to the flow of experience without becoming attached to any particular thought or sensation. As we practice mindful breathing, we may notice that the mind often wanders. This is completely natural and is not a sign of failure. In fact, noticing when the mind has wandered is a key part of the practice. Each time we notice that our attention has drifted away from the breath and become caught up in thoughts or distractions, we gently bring it back to the present moment. This process of noticing and returning is the essence of mindfulness. It's not about achieving a state of perfect concentration or preventing the mind from wandering. Rather, it's about becoming aware of when the mind has wandered. and gently guiding it back to the present. Over time, as we continue to practice mindfulness, we begin to develop a greater sense of clarity and awareness. We start to notice patterns in our thoughts and emotions, and we become more attuned to the subtle shifts in our inner experience. This heightened awareness allows us to see things more clearly and to respond to situations with greater wisdom and compassion. For example, we may notice that certain thoughts or emotions tend to trigger habitual reactions, such as anger, frustration, or anxiety. By becoming aware of these patterns, we can begin to interrupt the automatic cycle of reactivity and choose a more skillful response. Mindfulness also helps to cultivate a sense of spaciousness in the mind. Often, when we are caught up in thoughts or emotions, it can feel as though they are all-consuming, as though there is no room for anything else. But through mindfulness, we learn to observe thoughts and emotions as they arise, without getting lost in them. We create a sense of distance or perspective, allowing us to see thoughts and emotions for what they are, fleeting mental events that come and go rather than fixed aspects of our identity. This spaciousness allows us to hold our experiences more lightly without becoming overwhelmed by them. Another important aspect of mindfulness is the cultivation of non-judgmental awareness. In our everyday lives, we are constantly evaluating our experiences, labeling them as good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant. This habitual tendency to judge creates tension and dissatisfaction, as we are always striving for more of the pleasant experiences and trying to avoid the unpleasant ones. Mindfulness invites us to take a different approach. Rather than judging our experiences, we simply observe them with curiosity and openness. We allow ourselves to fully experience whatever is happening without needing to change it or make it different. This non-judgmental attitude is often referred to as equanimity. Equanimity is the ability to remain balanced and even-minded in the face of both pleasant and unpleasant experiences. It's the understanding that all experiences are temporary, that they arise and pass away, and that we don't need to cling to the pleasant ones or push away the unpleasant ones. Equanimity is not about suppressing emotions or becoming indifferent to life's joys and challenges. Rather, it's about developing a sense of inner stability and peace so that we can navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience. One of the most profound insights that arises from the practice of mindfulness is the recognition of impermanence. In Buddhism, impermanence is one of the fundamental truths of existence. Everything in life is constantly changing. Our thoughts, our emotions, our bodies, and the world around us. Nothing is fixed or permanent. When we live without mindfulness, we often resist this truth, clinging to what we want to last and pushing away what we want to avoid. This resistance creates suffering, as we are constantly trying to hold on to things that are inherently impermanent. Through mindfulness, we begin to see the truth of impermanence in our own experience. We notice how thoughts and emotions arise and pass away, how sensations in the body are constantly shifting, and how external circumstances are always changing. This recognition allows us to let go of our attachment to permanence and to embrace the flow of life with greater ease. It frees us from the need to control or fix everything. And it allows us to experience life as it is, in all its impermanence and unpredictability. Mindfulness also helps us to develop a deeper understanding of suffering. In Buddhism, suffering is seen as an inevitable part of life, but it is also something that can be transformed through wisdom and compassion. Mindfulness allows us to see the ways in which we create suffering for ourselves through our attachments, our aversions, and our habitual patterns of thought and behavior. By bringing awareness to these patterns, we can begin to disentangle ourselves from them and find a path to greater peace and freedom. For example, we may notice that when we cling to a particular outcome or expectation, we create anxiety and frustration for ourselves. Or we may see that when we try to avoid or suppress difficult emotions, we only make them stronger. Through mindfulness, we learn to meet suffering with compassion and understanding, rather than resistance or avoidance. We learn to hold our suffering with kindness, knowing that it is part of the human experience and that it, too, is impermanent. Another important aspect of mindfulness is its ability to cultivate compassion. When we are fully present with ourselves, we begin to see how much of our suffering arises from our own minds. We see how we get caught up in negative thought patterns, how we judge ourselves harshly, and how we create unnecessary tension and stress. This insight naturally gives rise to compassion for ourselves and for others. We realize that just as we struggle with our own minds, so do others. This understanding allows us to be more patient, more understanding, and more kind, both to ourselves and to those around us. Mindfulness is not just something we practice on a meditation cushion. It is something that can be integrated into every aspect of our lives. Whether we are washing the dishes, walking to work, or having a conversation with a friend, we can bring mindfulness to the present moment. By doing so, we create a deeper sense of connection and presence in our daily activities. We begin to experience life more fully, with all of its richness and complexity. Through mindfulness, we also develop a greater sense of gratitude. As we become more present with our experiences, we begin to notice the small moments of beauty and joy that we might otherwise overlook. Whether it's the warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of birds singing, or the taste of a delicious meal, mindfulness allows us to savor these moments and to appreciate the simple pleasures of life. This sense of gratitude enriches our lives and helps to counterbalance the challenges and difficulties we face. Ultimately, mindfulness is a practice of waking up. It is about becoming fully alive to the present moment and experiencing life with greater clarity, compassion, and wisdom. Through the cultivation of mindfulness, we begin to see the world and ourselves more clearly. We learn to navigate life's challenges with greater ease, and we open ourselves to the possibility of true inner peace and freedom. Loving kindness, or metta in Pali, is one of the central teachings in Buddhism and plays a vital role in cultivating a compassionate and open heart. This practice is not just an emotional state, but a deeply intentional effort to develop an attitude of unconditional goodwill toward all beings, including ourselves. Metta is a boundless, selfless love that wishes happiness, peace, and well-being for everyone, regardless of whether they are a friend, a stranger, or someone who has caused harm. It goes beyond the surface level of feelings and becomes a profound way of approaching life, encouraging us to respond to the world with gentleness and compassion rather than anger, resentment, or indifference. The journey of practicing loving kindness begins with oneself. In many Buddhist teachings, the first step in cultivating metta is to offer it inwardly, recognizing that we cannot truly extend love to others if we do not have love and compassion for ourselves. For many people, this can be one of the most challenging parts of the practice, as we often carry self-criticism, guilt, or feelings of inadequacy. Yet, it is crucial to develop a sense of loving kindness toward ourselves because it sets the foundation for how we relate to others. It is said that when we truly understand our own suffering, we become more capable of extending empathy and kindness to others. Practicing loving kindness towards oneself often involves repeating simple, heartfelt phrases such as, "May I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be peaceful, may I be free from suffering." These phrases are not magical incantations, but rather a way of gently planting seeds of love and compassion in our hearts. By repeating these phrases, we begin to soften the harsh inner dialogue that so many of us carry. Over time, this self-directed kindness helps to heal the wounds of self-judgment and opens us to the possibility of experiencing true peace and acceptance within. Once we have established a foundation of loving kindness toward ourselves, the practice naturally extends to others. We begin by directing metta toward those we love, our friends, family, and close companions. This is often easier because we already feel affection for these individuals. However, the practice of metta encourages us to deepen this love by making it unconditional. Rather than loving someone because they make us happy or fulfill certain needs, we cultivate a love that wishes for their well-being, regardless of how they behave or what they provide for us. This kind of love is free from attachment and expectations. It is a pure, altruistic wish for the happiness of others. The next stage in the practice of loving kindness is to extend it to neutral individuals. People we may encounter in daily life, but with whom we have no particular emotional connection. This could be a colleague, a neighbor, or even a stranger we pass on the street. By practicing loving kindness toward neutral people, we begin to break down the barriers that separate us from others. We recognize that, just like us, these individuals have their own joys and sorrows, their own struggles and aspirations. The practice of metta helps us to see beyond the superficial differences between ourselves and others, and to connect with the shared humanity that binds us all. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of the practice of loving kindness is extending it to those with whom we have conflicts or negative feelings. Offering metta to someone who has hurt us or whom we dislike can feel counterintuitive or even impossible at times. Yet this is where the true power of the practice lies. By cultivating loving kindness for difficult people, we are not excusing their harmful actions or allowing ourselves to be mistreated. Instead, we are recognizing that at the core, even those who cause harm are acting out of their own suffering, confusion, or fear. By wishing for their well-being, we are freeing ourselves from the burden of hatred and resentment, which only serve to perpetuate our own suffering. This stage of the practice often requires great patience and persistence. It may begin with small, tentative steps, perhaps simply wishing that the person in question finds peace or that their suffering is alleviated. Over time, as we continue to practice, the heart begins to soften, and we may find that our feelings of anger or bitterness start to diminish. The practice of loving kindness toward difficult people helps to dismantle the walls of separation and enmity that we often build around ourselves. It allows us to see that, at the deepest level, all beings share the same desire for happiness and freedom from suffering. Loving kindness is not limited to individuals. In its most expansive form, metta is directed toward all beings, without exception. This includes not only humans, but also animals, plants, and even the natural environment. The Buddha taught that all beings, regardless of their form or status, are deserving of love and compassion. By extending loving kindness to all beings, we cultivate a sense of interconnectedness and responsibility for the well-being of the entire world. This universal love transcends the boundaries of race, nationality, religion, and species, recognizing that all life is interconnected and that the happiness and suffering of one being inevitably affect the whole. Through the practice of loving kindness, we begin to experience a deep sense of joy and fulfillment. This joy is not dependent on external circumstances, but arises naturally from the act of giving love. When we wish for the happiness of others, we experience a kind of inner freedom, a release from the narrow confines of self-centeredness and the opening of the heart to the boundless possibilities of love. This joy, known as mudita in Buddhism, is a natural companion to loving kindness. It is the ability to take delight in the happiness and well-being of others, rather than feeling jealousy or envy. Mudita allows us to celebrate the successes and joys of others as if they were our own, further deepening our sense of connection and compassion. Loving kindness is not just a practice for times of meditation or formal reflection. It is a way of life, a way of relating to the world with an open heart. As we continue to cultivate metta, we find that it begins to infuse our everyday interactions with greater kindness and understanding. We become more patient with others, more willing to listen, and more compassionate in our responses. In moments of conflict or tension, the practice of loving kindness helps us to pause, take a breath, and respond with empathy rather than reactivity. Over time, this practice can transform not only our relationships with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. The benefits of loving kindness are not limited to emotional well-being. Numerous studies have shown that the practice of metta can have profound effects on physical health as well. Regularly practicing loving kindness meditation has been shown to reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and increase feelings of overall well-being. This is not surprising, as the practice helps to reduce the negative effects of anger, resentment, and fear, emotions that can take a toll on both the mind and the body. The practice of loving kindness is a lifelong journey. It is not something that can be perfected overnight, nor is it something that we ever finish. Instead, it is an ongoing process of opening the heart, expanding our capacity for love, and deepening our connection to all beings. Each time we practice metta, we are planting seeds of compassion that will continue to grow and blossom over time. By nurturing these seeds, we create the conditions for a life that is more peaceful, more joyful, and more aligned with the fundamental principles of kindness, compassion, and interconnectedness that lie at the heart of the Buddhist path. Generosity, or dana in the Pali language, is one of the most fundamental virtues in Buddhism, representing an essential aspect of ethical and spiritual practice. The practice of generosity extends far beyond the mere act of giving material possessions. It encompasses an attitude of openness, kindness, and selflessness that pervades every aspect of life. In Buddhism, generosity is not viewed merely as a way to help others, though that is certainly part of its importance. It is also a practice that transforms the giver by loosening the grip of attachment and self-centeredness, helping to cultivate a heart that is free from greed and clinging. When we think of generosity, we often think of giving things, money, food, clothes, or other material items. And indeed, this form of generosity is important, especially when it is done with the right intention. In many Buddhist cultures, dana is seen as one of the highest forms of practice, with lay people often supporting monks and nuns through the act of offering material goods. However, material generosity is just one way to practice dana. The Buddha emphasized that the intention behind giving is far more important than the size or value of the gift itself. When we give with a pure heart, with no expectation of receiving anything in return, we practice true generosity. In fact, even the smallest gift, when given with the right intention, can have a profound effect. Generosity, in the deepest sense, is about cultivating a mind that is free from the attachment to possessions, status, or praise. It is about recognizing the interconnectedness of all beings and understanding that when we give, we are not truly losing anything. Instead, we are participating in a natural flow of resources and energy, contributing to the well-being of others while also freeing ourselves from the burden of clinging. The act of giving, when done selflessly, opens the heart and fosters a sense of abundance rather than scarcity. It helps us to see that we already have enough, and that true happiness does not come from acquiring more, but from sharing what we have with others. One of the most beautiful aspects of the practice of generosity is that it can be done by anyone, regardless of their financial situation. Dana is not limited to material giving. In fact, some of the most meaningful forms of generosity involve giving things that cannot be bought or sold. We can give our time, our attention, our energy, or our love. We can offer a listening ear to someone who is struggling, a smile to a stranger, or words of encouragement to someone who is feeling down. These non-material gifts are often even more valuable than material possessions because they come from the heart and directly contribute to the well-being of others. In the same way, the generosity of forgiveness is an often overlooked but deeply transformative form of giving. When we forgive someone who has wronged us, we are offering them the gift of release from resentment and ill will. At the same time, we are freeing ourselves from the emotional burden of holding on to anger or grudges. This act of forgiveness, when done with a genuine intention, is an act of generosity because it requires letting go of our desire for retribution or vindication. It involves giving up the need to be right or to make the other person feel guilty, and instead choosing to offer compassion and understanding. Generosity also extends to how we treat the natural world. The earth provides us with everything we need to survive: food, water, air, and shelter, without asking for anything in return. Yet, as human beings, we often take these resources for granted, consuming more than we need and causing harm to the environment in the process. The practice of dana invites us to reflect on our relationship with the earth and to consider how we can live more sustainably with an awareness of how our actions impact the planet and future generations. This might involve making more mindful choices about how we use resources, reducing waste, or supporting initiatives that protect the environment. By doing so, we are practicing generosity on a global scale, contributing to the well-being of all living beings. In addition to benefiting others, the practice of generosity brings great joy and fulfillment to the giver. This joy is not dependent on external rewards or recognition, but arises naturally from the act of giving itself. In Buddhism, it is often said that the giver benefits more than the recipient because the act of giving helps to loosen the grip of attachment and ego. The Buddha taught that there are three kinds of joy associated with giving: the joy of intention, the joy of the act itself, and the joy that comes after the gift has been given. The joy of intention comes from the happiness we feel when we decide to give, knowing that our actions will bring benefit to others. The joy of the act comes from the immediate satisfaction of giving, whether it's offering a meal, donating to a cause, or helping someone in need. Finally, the joy that comes after the gift has been given is the lasting sense of fulfillment and peace that arises from knowing we have acted with kindness and generosity. The practice of generosity also helps to cultivate other important qualities, such as gratitude, humility, and empathy. When we give, we are reminded of all the ways in which we have been supported by others, whether it's through the kindness of friends and family, the efforts of teachers and mentors, or the generosity of strangers. This awareness fosters a sense of gratitude for the interconnectedness of life and the many blessings we receive each day. Generosity also teaches us humility because it reminds us that we are not separate from others, but part of a larger web of relationships and interdependence. By practicing dana, we acknowledge that we are not self-sufficient and that our happiness is tied to the well-being of others. Empathy, too, is deepened through the practice of dana. When we give, we are tuning into the needs and suffering of others, and we are responding with kindness and care. This act of giving helps to dissolve the barriers that separate us from others, allowing us to feel a deeper sense of connection and understanding. Empathy is not just about feeling sorry for someone or imagining what it would be like to be in their shoes. It is about recognizing our shared humanity and responding to the needs of others with compassion. The Buddha emphasized that the practice of generosity should not be seen as a way to accumulate merit or gain favor with others. Instead, it is a practice that arises naturally from a heart that is open and free from attachment. When we give without expecting anything in return, we are practicing true dana. This kind of giving helps to purify the mind and cultivate the qualities of kindness, compassion, and selflessness. In Buddhism, ethical living, or sila, is closely related to the practice of generosity. While generosity opens the heart and loosens the grip of attachment, ethical living provides the foundation for a life that is in harmony with the world and with others. Sila refers to the moral conduct that governs our actions, speech, and thoughts. It is about living in a way that avoids harm and promotes the well-being of all beings. The Buddha taught that ethical living is not just about following a set of rules or commandments. Rather, it is about cultivating a sense of mindfulness and awareness in everything we do. Ethical conduct is guided by the principle of non-harming, or ahimsa, which means that we strive to act in ways that cause the least amount of suffering to ourselves and others. This principle applies not only to our actions, but also to our speech and our thoughts. It encourages us to be mindful of the impact that our words and actions have on others, and to act in ways that promote harmony, peace, and well-being. In Buddhist practice, the 5 precepts serve as guidelines for ethical living. These precepts are not commandments, but training rules designed to help us live in a way that aligns with the principles of non-harming and compassion. The first precept is to refrain from killing or harming any living being. This precept encourages us to develop a deep respect for all life and to avoid causing harm to others, whether through physical violence, cruelty, or neglect. It also extends to how we treat the environment and the animals with whom we share the planet. The second precept is to refrain from taking what is not freely given. This precept goes beyond the obvious act of stealing. It also includes any form of exploitation, dishonesty, or taking advantage of others. It encourages us to live with integrity and to respect the rights and autonomy of others. By practicing this precept, we cultivate a sense of contentment and gratitude for what we have, rather than constantly seeking to acquire more. The third precept is to refrain from sexual misconduct, which refers to any form of sexual behavior that causes harm to oneself or others. This precept emphasizes the importance of respect, consent, and care in our intimate relationships. It encourages us to approach our relationships with mindfulness and to act in ways that promote mutual trust, kindness, and understanding. The fourth precept is to refrain from false or harmful speech. The Buddha taught that our words have tremendous power to either uplift or harm others. By practicing right speech, we commit to speaking truthfully, kindly, and in ways that promote harmony and understanding. This precept encourages us to avoid gossip, slander, or any form of speech that causes division or harm. The fifth precept is to refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. This precept is based on the understanding that clarity of mind is essential for ethical living. When the mind is clouded by alcohol, drugs, or other intoxicants, our ability to act with mindfulness and compassion is impaired. By practicing this precept, we commit to maintaining a clear and focused mind, which supports our ability to make wise and ethical choices. Ethical living is not about rigidly following rules or judging ourselves or others for falling short. Instead, it is a practice of continually refining our actions, intentions, and attitudes. It is about cultivating mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom in everything we do and aligning our lives with the principles of non-harming and interconnectedness. Through the practice of ethical living, we create the conditions for a life that is in harmony with the world and with others, and we contribute to the well-being of all beings. Meditation is one of the most transformative practices in the Buddhist tradition, offering a profound path to self-awareness, mental clarity, and spiritual awakening. Though often associated with tranquility and stillness, meditation is much more than just an exercise in relaxation. It is a disciplined method for training the mind, cultivating inner peace, and ultimately gaining insight into the nature of reality. Meditation leads practitioners on a journey of self-discovery, where they learn not only to calm their minds, but also to observe their thoughts, emotions, and sensations with a sense of equanimity. Through this process, they come to understand the impermanent and interdependent nature of existence, which is central to the Buddhist path. The practice of meditation begins with the cultivation of mindfulness, or sati, which is the foundation upon which all other aspects of meditation are built. Mindfulness refers to the practice of bringing one's attention to the present moment without judgment or distraction. In our everyday lives, we are often caught up in thoughts about the past or worries about the future, making it difficult to experience life fully. Our minds are frequently scattered, jumping from one thought to the next, and we are rarely present with what is happening in the here and now. Meditation helps to counter this habitual distraction by training the mind to return to the present moment repeatedly. A common meditation practice used to develop mindfulness is focusing on the breath. The breath is a natural and ever-present anchor that allows us to ground our attention in the body and the current moment. When we meditate, we direct our awareness to the sensation of the breath as it moves in and out of the body. This could involve feeling the rise and fall of the chest, the coolness of the air as it enters the nostrils, or the subtle movements of the diaphragm. As we concentrate on the breath, we begin to notice how the mind tends to wander. Thoughts arise, sometimes pulling us into stories or emotions, and before we know it, our attention has drifted away from the breath. In mindfulness meditation, this is not a problem. Rather, it is an integral part of the practice. Each time we notice the mind has wandered, we gently bring it back to the breath. This act of noticing and returning is the essence of mindfulness training. As we deepen our practice of mindfulness, we begin to cultivate a more refined awareness of our internal landscape. We start to observe not only our thoughts, but also our emotions, bodily sensations, and even our reactions to external stimuli. This heightened awareness allows us to see the patterns and habits of the mind that often operate unconsciously. For example, we may notice how certain thoughts trigger feelings of anxiety or anger, or how we tend to react to discomfort with avoidance or resistance. By bringing these patterns into conscious awareness, we gain the ability to respond to them more skillfully, rather than reacting automatically. One of the key insights that arises from mindfulness meditation is the recognition of impermanence, or anicca. In Buddhism, impermanence is one of the fundamental characteristics of all conditioned phenomena, and it is something we can observe directly through meditation. As we sit and watch our breath, thoughts, and sensations, we begin to see that everything is constantly changing. The breath comes and goes, thoughts arise and dissolve, and sensations shift and transform from moment to moment. Nothing remains fixed or permanent. This insight into the ever-changing nature of experience helps to loosen our attachment to things as we come to realize that clinging to what is inherently impermanent is a source of suffering. This understanding of impermanence is not just theoretical, it has practical implications for how we relate to life. When we grasp the truth of impermanence, we begin to let go of our need to control or hold on to experiences. We stop clinging to pleasant sensations or resisting unpleasant ones, knowing that both will inevitably change. This leads to a greater sense of ease and freedom in our daily lives. We become less reactive and more accepting of life's ups and downs, recognizing that all experiences, both positive and negative, are fleeting. Another key aspect of meditation is the cultivation of concentration, or samadhi. Concentration refers to the ability to focus the mind on a single point of attention without being distracted. In the early stages of meditation, the mind is often restless and easily pulled in different directions by thoughts, emotions, and external stimuli. However, through regular practice, the mind becomes more stable and focused. As concentration deepens, we experience a sense of inner calm and stillness that allows us to remain present with whatever arises in the moment. This calm and focused mind creates the conditions for deeper insights to emerge. The development of concentration is essential for the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation, which is the primary method for gaining direct understanding of the nature of reality in Buddhist practice. In insight meditation, the practitioner uses the stability and clarity developed through concentration to investigate the nature of their experience more deeply. Vipassana involves observing the changing nature of thoughts, emotions, and sensations with the aim of seeing through the illusions of permanence and selfhood that cause suffering. Through Vipassana meditation, practitioners begin to realize the interconnectedness of all phenomena. They come to see that nothing exists independently or in isolation. Every thought, emotion, and sensation arises due to a complex web of causes and conditions. This insight into interdependence or dependent origination reveals that the notion of a separate, permanent self is an illusion. Rather than being fixed entities, we are dynamic processes that are constantly evolving in relation to everything around us. This understanding helps to dissolve the ego's attachment to the idea of a fixed self and opens the heart to a sense of unity with all beings. As we continue to practice meditation, we also cultivate equanimity, or upekkha. Equanimity is the ability to remain balanced and composed in the face of both pleasant and unpleasant experiences. It is a state of inner calm that is not swayed by the changing conditions of life. In meditation, we practice observing our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them or reacting to them. This practice of non-reactivity helps to develop equanimity, allowing us to face life's challenges with greater resilience and grace. Equanimity does not mean indifference or detachment from life. Rather, it is an attitude of acceptance and openness that allows us to engage fully with the present moment without being overwhelmed by it. Equanimity helps us to hold both joy and sorrow with equal care, recognizing that both are part of the human experience and neither defines our true nature. It frees us from the constant push and pull of desire and aversion, enabling us to navigate life with greater ease and clarity. Another important aspect of meditation is the cultivation of compassion, or karuna. As we become more mindful of our own suffering, we naturally develop a sense of empathy for the suffering of others. We see that just as we experience pain, frustration, and disappointment, so do all beings. This recognition of shared suffering gives rise to compassion, the heartfelt wish for all beings to be free from suffering. In meditation, we practice generating compassion for ourselves and others, often through specific techniques such as loving-kindness meditation or metta. In loving-kindness meditation, we begin by offering wishes of happiness, peace, and well-being to ourselves. From there, we extend these wishes to others, starting with loved ones and gradually including neutral people, difficult people, and eventually all beings. This practice helps to open the heart and dissolve feelings of anger, resentment, or judgment. It encourages us to approach others with kindness and understanding, even in difficult situations. Over time, the practice of compassion becomes a natural part of how we relate to the world, transforming our relationships and our sense of connection to all beings. The practice of meditation also brings profound benefits to our physical and mental well-being. Numerous studies have shown that regular meditation can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and improve overall mental health. Meditation helps to calm the nervous system, promoting relaxation and reducing the harmful effects of chronic stress. It also increases emotional resilience, allowing us to manage difficult emotions more effectively and respond to challenges with greater clarity and composure. Perhaps one of the most significant benefits of meditation is the development of self-awareness. Through meditation, we become more attuned to our inner world, our thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations. This increased self-awareness allows us to better understand the motivations and patterns that drive our behavior. We begin to notice how certain thoughts lead to certain emotions and how these emotions influence our actions. This insight gives us greater control over our responses, helping us to act more mindfully and intentionally rather than reacting impulsively. As we deepen our meditation practice, we also develop a greater sense of gratitude and appreciation for life. Meditation helps us to slow down and savor the simple moments of life that we often overlook. Whether it's the feeling of the sun on our skin, the sound of birds singing, or the taste of a meal, meditation allows us to experience life more fully. This sense of presence and awareness brings a deep sense of contentment and joy, independent of external circumstances. Meditation is not just a practice confined to the cushion or the meditation hall. It is a way of life, a method for cultivating mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom in every aspect of our daily existence. Through meditation, we learn to see ourselves and the world more clearly, and we gain the tools to navigate life's challenges with greater equanimity and ease. Meditation offers a path to inner peace, freedom, and a deep connection to all beings, helping us to live with greater purpose, kindness, and understanding. I hope this exploration has inspired you to deepen your mindfulness and compassion in everyday life. Wishing you peace, clarity, and joy in your continued practice. Take care and stay tuned for another upcoming videos.